Welcome to the Carry the Flag podcast. Today's guest was in one of the most dangerous places in Afghanistan. He was shot in the head and it went over the radio, KIA. He walked away, and now today, Kyle Steiner joins us. Husband, father, Green Beret. Kyle, dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. I'm excited to share your story with everybody, and just kind of give us a quick introduction of yourself, of what you're doing. You're father of three, and tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, man. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I joined the Army in 2004, and I just recently got out 75 days ago officially, and moved the family back to Wisconsin. It's
Nice,
been a
man.
blast. I'm working on being a dad again.
Dude, so you got in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just now getting out. How has that transition been?
It's been pretty good. There are some rough spots again. Being in the military for 22 years or so, and then in special operations for 17 of it. I have ways of doing things. I have my way of doing things, and I find that civilians don't always align with it, but it's your normal problems. You're working through it. I think the biggest thing is setting your own battle rhythm. I say battle rhythm, what you do on the day to day. For the first 30, 45 days, I would just kind of wake up and look around, and I wouldn't have a plan, and it would drive me nuts. Well, I guess I'll just go cut that tree down now.
Yeah, I mean, dude, when you said 22 years, right?
Yeah.
17 in special forces. I mean, dude, we're talking 2 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars. You were in some shit. Yeah. And going from that to regular civilian life of taking your kids to school and going to the grocery store, dude, I bet that's probably a pretty hard transition.
It's an adjustment for sure. And first I'm thinking, I'm trying to not be myself who I would be in the military. When you see something awry and reacting the way you do, and I have to step back and say, what would a normal what's a normal person's reaction to this situation right now? Because what I'm feeling inside is not the reaction that needs to be vented.
Yeah, dude. So start us off, man. Like you said, 2004, you get in. What was your childhood like? Did you have somebody that was kind of a mentor towards you to get into the military? What was your childhood? I remember seeing a picture of you as a little kid with a Ranger shirt on. So, I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, I was a military brat for a number of years, and my dad served on active duty for a long time. And growing up, I think I was maybe 5 years old when he first took me to work, and I got to see the Humvees and the arms room and stuff. And he never pushed me into the military by any means. I don't know what his aim was, but I remember going to a duty office that's 24/7. He was probably talking to a friend or somebody, and I picked up these pamphlets, these pamphlets to change your job in the Army, and there was Rangers and Special Forces and Airborne, and it was all these cool pictures. Old pamphlets are way better, they fold it out into 11 sections, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna do that. And from then on, probably 5-6 years old, I knew in the back of my mind, I had other things. I'm gonna play professional football for the Green Bay Packers or whatever, but I knew that the military was in my future for sure. And I would go out, and my dad jokes that he would see me looking at PT and looking at the soldiers doing their morning exercises, and I would be doing them in the front lawn, watching them from afar. He's like, I have pictures of you lunging with a log, like a little log on your back, because that's what they were doing. And I was like, oh, he's like, it was in your blood from the start, and nobody could stop it, But I had a normal childhood. I don't know if kids still do this. My sons do, but you go to the woods and you find a stick shaped as a gun, and you're out there doing things,
Dude, all the time. My brother and my dad, we were fortunate that we grew up and he had 10 acres of land. And I mean, dude, every day during the summer, there was a war going on back in the backyard,
Yeah.
We were always being invaded, man.
Yeah.
So, dude, 2004, September 11th was 2001. So you joined the Army.
Yep. The Army.
Okay. How, you kind of knew a little bit going into it what was going to be like, but how was that transition of, going from high school to your dad, to your parents, and then going right into the military?
I had been prepping for it kind of mentally my whole life, so I was really pumped. I wanted to be the best soldier ever, and that's all I ever wanted to do. So I can remember like practicing marching and saluting in my bedroom. Memorizing the phonetic alphabet. They used to give you these online things, these pre-study things before you become a soldier, and
Yeah.
all general orders and commands and stuff. And I was like flying through them, and I loved it. I was always working out, trying to get a better physical fitness score and stuff like that. So I knew what I wanted to do. And it's funny because when I went in, the recruiters, they kind of gave me the runaround like recruiters do. Um, and I was like, hey, I want to be a special forces guy. And they were like, well, we don't know if that's going to be available. And I was like, well, then tell me what it is. And they just kept pitching me other jobs and other jobs. Well, my dad used to get the Army Times newspaper in the mail. And I remember seeing the front page of one. It was so go see the recruiter, and it said critical job shortage of 19 Delta cavalry scout. Like Army needs,
Yeah, yeah.
25,000 cavalry scouts. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna be a Green Beret. And I went in there, and this is when I knew the recruiter was, he's trying to do his job and get the best. But I was like, hey, you got any special forces, openings? And he was like, no, but let me tell you about this really good job, the cavalry scout. And he was like, man, it's awesome. I was like, man, now you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. And I knew it right then. I was like, nope. And I held out. And I finally got my slot, and ended up not working out anyway because I ended up not being successful my first time around anyway.
Dang it. So I know, like you said, it's probably a tough pill to swallow, but dude, like what I love is about your mindset is you're open and front about it, that you're like, and you can tell everybody about it, because I kind of know a little bit about your background, that you failed selection the first time, if that's what they call it, selection,
Yeah.
if that's correct.
Yeah, SFA, Special Forces Assessment Selection. And I failed, and I was in the best shape of my life. I was in such good shape. And I failed because of maturity. I failed because of all the things that they say they want. I didn't even think about it. I was like, if I run the fastest and ruck with the most weight as far as I can and crush everything, crush the land navigation, there's no way they can't take me. And at the end, they're like, hey, man, you're just kind of a child. It's funny because I read every book I could on selection and trying to get a little intelligence on how to pass it and how to be successful. And the only thing I didn't take into account was uh, what you can't learn on the streets. And that's, teamwork, leading when in charge, following when you're not in charge, being a
Wow.
good soldier. And I was none of that. I was immature. I remember reading that you have to be lighthearted. So, and keep the mood light when times get tough at selection. So I had like a list of jokes prepared. And then I remember like doing something really hard, but I was
Yeah.
a physical monster. And I started telling jokes and just got the death stares from these regular Army guys that had already been to 2-3 years of war. And they were like, this kid needs to shut up. And I was devastated when I didn't pass, but I understood. I was like, okay, that checks out. I am a
Dude,
baby.
I
I don't know what I'm
I
doing.
think what's great about like how you reacted when shit wasn't going your way. I tell my kids all the time, it's like, hey, go, I would rather you fail than not try. And dude, you
Yeah.
went, and it was probably like you said, devastating that you put all this work in and you didn't get selected.
Yeah. It hurt, man, for months. When you really commit to something mentally and emotionally and spiritually and you fail, I tell my kids this, you have nightmares about it. Like it haunts your dreams for months and about what you could have done differently. You replay it so much. And I was like, I don't know what
Oh
I
yeah, man.
did. I don't know how I could have done better. And looking back on it, like we talk about, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know the man I would have turned out
Mm,
had I been successful that first time. I'm
wow.
very happy it happened.
Dude, I sit there and I say that all the time. It's like, how do you react when shit's not going your way? You had
Yeah.
every opportunity to quit. You had every opportunity to make that into a negative experience and be negative about the military. But dude, I love your mindset that you made it drive you that much harder. And I
Yeah.
mean, dude, I see it in your Instagram. I see it on your videos, your things with your kids. Dude, like your mindset is just like, we're, and it probably created that mindset for you,
I
because you
think
were
so.
like, yeah, dude, I love it, man. I love
Yeah,
it.
Mark Cuban says every no gets me closer to yes. And I'm like, yeah. because I will not stop. That's how I tell my boys. That's the mindset that we go off of that. I will not be outworked. My effort will always be at the peak I can do. And, I had this conversation with somebody recently. They were like, but what if you can win a race or do whatever with 75% effort? I said, that's not good enough. To me, that's chicken shit. I will never do that. I will always give my best effort no matter what. It can be checkers. It can be whatever it is. I will always be giving 100%. To do any less is a disservice to yourself and everyone else. Like, why wouldn't I?
Dude, I say the same things to my kids. I'm like, they may be faster, they may be stronger, but they're not going to outwork you.
Yeah.
You were always going to be the hardest worker in the room, and you just let that go. Don't, like you said, if they're stronger, faster, whatever, but you are going to outwork them,
Yeah.
So
yeah, and fathers ask me all the time in my mentorships. They're like, "How do you get these results out of your kids?" And I said, "I never, ever praise or belittle outcome. Outcome doesn't matter. I praise or belittle effort. Your effort is the only thing that matters. And I praise in public, and I critique in private. But their effort is the only thing I ever bring up. Did you give it your best? If you did, who cares what the outcome was?
Of course.
Are you ready to do it again?
Of course, man. Of course. I love it, man. I love it. I feel like our mindsets are right there on the same thing. We could go over this a lot, and we're going to hit more on this here in a little bit. But dude, so you don't get selection, and do they automatic? You get sent to
Needs
one
of
of the
the
most
Army.
dangerous places in Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, so you get sent needs of the Army wherever they need you. And my original orders were for 1st Cavalry Division in, I think, Fort Hood.
Okay.
And I knew a guy that was going to Italy, and he had a wife at Fort Hood. So we were able to get an immediate switch. When I tell people this story, how I got to Italy is wild, because how I got to OP Restrepo in the Korengal Valley, that entire thing is just wild. I had to, I tried out for a LURS unit at Bragg, and then they accepted me, but then we're like, hey, sorry, your orders have already been cut. We can't take you. I got this kid to switch with me at the last minute. And then a week later, I'm on a flight to Italy. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea I have like a Milwaukee Brewers shirt on and like Levi jeans, and I show up at the Venice airport, and I must have missed the sign that said, like, if you're new to the unit here, call this number. Cause I just like walked past it, and then like made my way via taxi, bus, train to like the front gate of this unit. And I'm just like knocking on the gate door, like in the rain, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and for me I got accepted into scouts, and then didn't last long in that unit. I ended up messing up a bunch during a live fire exercise. Again, still didn't know what I was doing. Got sent to the line unit, and we ended up building OP Restrepo and having that.
So, and real quick, how old are you at this point? 18, 19?
19, 20. I had my 21st birthday at OP Restrepo, so.
Gotcha, man. Like, so, you sit here and you say how immature. I mean, dude, I remember when I was 18, 19 years old, and it's like, dude, you think you know everything in the world, but you don't know anything.
No.
And the older you get, you're like, Jesus, man, I didn't know anything. But God, like 19, you thought you knew everything, right?
Right. I told my sons that. I'm like, if I knew now what I know, if I knew then what I know now, like it would be amazing, especially with that body and what I could do back then. You're so green, and you don't realize how much you gain just from simple interactions and experiences, failures, successes. Wow. You don't realize what that imprints on you later on when you're 40, 45. You're like, wow,
dude,
that was a lot of stuff.
I mean, the saying is so right. You either win or you learn. You never lose.
Yeah.
Like every time that something doesn't go or you fail, you learn something. And it's incredible, like you said, is, every no is one step closer to a yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. Every loss is one more step towards a win. Like how much you learn from it.
FAIL is an acronym for first attempt in learning. That's all it is.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. I love it. Okay, so you're in Italy, and from Italy, you get shipped to Afghanistan. How, and kind of explain everybody what you kind of went through, what things were going on there.
Yeah, I mean, when I got to Italy, like I said, I tried out for scouts, and I was one of like 3 people that made it. I only lasted a couple months there, and ended up getting moved over to the command team's personal security detachment, which you just spend the entire time with the battalion command team. So the head sergeant major and the head colonel, and I spent a couple months with them, and then I was like, hey, I want to go to the line, and he was like, all right, where do you want to go? And I said, well, I want to go to battle company, because I knew they were going to the most dangerous place. In the war. They had already said it. They brought every unit in and gave them a brief in the theater. And I remember everybody's brief was kind of the same until they got to battle company, and specifically second platoon. They're like, hey, you're kind of going to be in the hornet's nest, and we're just going to like you figure it out, and they were like, okay. And I remember thinking like, okay, that sounds promising. And it didn't disappoint. The first day that I got there, we had the big rucksacks with all our stuff in it. They're like, all right, empty all that out. And here's a pickaxe and a shovel and some sandbags. You guys are going to walk up there and in place an outpost. And we're like, what? In the middle of the night. We're like, okay. And yeah, you had like one food thing, some water, a ton of ammo, and like they stacked these sandbags and twined together. And then they gave you like a pickaxe, like a coal miner's pickaxe and a shovel. And we walked for the 2.5 hours up, and, to come to find out later, it was an enemy fighting position. They had actually dug out their own trenches. So when we got up there, that's what we slept in, and they already had brass from them shooting down with the American positions. So we moved in. We straight squatted in their area and built an entire OP around what they considered to be their prime fighting position, and that's how we took it over. And we stayed there for 15 months.
And dude, like having your mindset and having that, like you wanted the hard thing, like you asked your you know, I can't remember how you put it, but you wanted to get into the, the
Yeah.
show.
I mean, what does every young man want? They want to prove themselves, right? And maybe it was a little more so for me. It's why I went to selection so early, and it was so devastating to fail. I wanted to prove, I wish there was a hypothetical person that I was trying to impress, but it was myself. I wanted to know that I could do something hard and keep going with it. And, no knock on any guys that were at Restrepo or in Afghanistan that had prior aspirations of doing anything further, but a lot of guys got out. To each his own. I don't discredit them at all.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a life to live, but every hard thing that we did made me want to do more. I was like, okay. Can I do more? Yeah, right on. This is just preparing me. This is filling in the gaps I didn't have the first time, and this is still just a lowly E4, private first class or a specialist, like walking around, not really knowing the bigger picture, just being like, I don't know. My squad leader told me to be here, so I'm right here with a machine gun. And a lot of people ask me like, what? It's funny because I do these interviews and people are like, what was your strategic, what were you trying to gain strategically? I'm like, man, I was a private first class. I was sitting behind this tree with a machine gun because that's where Mac told me to be. And this was my lane. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be looking at. And I didn't want to make him disappointed at all. Him or my team leader, Brendan O'Byrne, I wanted to make them happy and impress them. And I was like, I'm going to do the best I can at this job. And, every little tiny thing that I could do better, I always felt a little sense of pride, and it's carried over,
Well, yeah, man. I mean, you said how you were up there for, not you specifically up there, but you guys held that position for 15 months. Is that what you said? Or
yeah, our unit held that position for 15 months, but the reason it gained so much notoriety is not only was the fighting was some of the worst. I heard, like I said, I've heard several things, and some credible sources from that unit have told me that we had the most troops in contact call ups in a certain period, within a month and a day. The entire time, something like 400 troops in contact is what First Sergeant Caldwell once told me, I think. And then I think Captain Kearney or Colonel Kearney now, he told me that we were dropping like 80 or 90% of the bombs were being dropped to help us in the whole country. Like when airplanes flew, they were like, we're going over there. And, so that kind of stuff, we were getting a lot of firefights all the time, so much that you didn't even want to do it anymore. You would get in a firefight, clean your gun, and then you'd hear the rounds kick up again, and you waited to see if it was just a pop shot, so you didn't have to clean your gun again. I remember like cleaning the machine gun and being like, oh man, I just cleaned this. And like, I wonder if it's just a few rounds. And then it would pick up and you're like, No. Um, but also because of the hardships, we went up and built an OP Vietnam style, really. I mean, we slept on the ground for the first couple months. Then they sent us cots. You couldn't drive there and you couldn't land a helicopter there. So they just dropped it off in a net called a sling load from the bottom of a helicopter, and they would just drop it. So finally, they sent us some cots. And then after a while, they sent us, we got more sandbags and the HESCOs to fill with rock and dirt. And then after 6 more months, we got plywood and some nails and some hammers. So we started building little tiny huts. So if you look at a picture of Restrepo from afar, if it was in black and white and you held it up to, say, a camp in Nam Dong or Dak To or wherever in Vietnam, they look identical. You can't tell the difference. Ponchos covering doorways. You have no idea what you're looking at. And that's what made it so impressive to the outside world, is like we ate MREs. For 15 months, MREs, it'll do terrible things to your gut health.
You're like, I don't remember reading all of this in these pamphlets as a kid. They sugarcoat it a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing, is that the guys at there, I would say 65, 70%, maybe more of the platoon, this was their first deployment. An infantry platoon is made up of young dudes. As you get senior, you get rotated out. So I don't remember any of us, maybe some of the other guys did, but we just thought this was normal. This is what everybody was doing. Like I did. I was like, oh, this must be the war. This is what everybody's doing. It's not until months later you get rotated to a bigger forward operating base that you start talking to the other people, and they're like, we try to take a case of Red Bull on a mission before we go out. And we were like, you guys have Red Bull? What? Or anything like that. They would talk and we were like, wait a minute. And you're talking about magazines that they had. We're like, you guys have magazines? No way. We thought that was war. And I remember, I don't know if the older guys ever told me it wasn't. I don't remember hearing about it, but I feel like they probably did. Like, no, this is not normal. And we're like, it seems pretty normal. But
because that was your first deployment, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't know any different.
We just thought that's what people were doing. It wasn't until another unit came up to they were doing a mission like a recon or something, and they walked through and they're like, hey, can we spend the night at Restrepo? And we're like, cool. And they were with us, and I don't know what we were doing, but I know we were sitting by like a fire over some HESCO wire that we made out of a 55-gallon drum, and it looked like something out of Band of Brothers. We're all sitting there, and they were like, can we ask you guys a question? Like, what are you doing up here? And we're like, I don't know. Like, this is like Korean War stuff. Like, it was when it snowed. I remember thinking when it snowed a lot during the winter, and we were like, oh yes, like we won't have to go out on missions and patrol in the snow. And then the very next thing the helicopter dropped off was like those big Arctic snowshoes. And we were like, okay, well,
dude, I don't know if I thought about that. So
yeah,
I mean, you're talking a lot of snow up there probably then.
Yeah. That part of Afghanistan looks like Utah. It looks like Colorado. Like people ask me about it and I'm like, no, there would be resorts out there like Aspen, Colorado. If it wasn't the place it is, beautiful, gorgeous place. But,
I think I've actually heard people kind of say that was, dude, if it wasn't Afghanistan, it would have, like you said, ski resorts. It would be amazing.
Oh yeah. They'd have a huge tourism business if they weren't, dicks about everything.
I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah.
Dude, so you're up there, and again, it blows me away because I don't even think about the snow. Like, it's almost like being a firefighter. Like, hey, do you guys ride on the back of the trucks? It's like, no, we don't anymore. But you talk to the old guys, and you're like, oh man, like, it'd be so awesome to ride on the back of the trucks. Especially here in Kansas City, they're like, yeah, during the summer it's awesome. During the wintertime, it sucks. You're getting hit with snow. So you don't think about these things. So you're thinking about this. You're thinking, okay, Afghanistan, desert, mountain. It's like, oh, snow. That sucks. So did the fighting and everything like slow down during the wintertime? Or
it took a little bit of a lull. We still fought a decent amount, but it wasn't nearly as close to their fighting seasons are fall and spring, really heavy. And then it'll go into a lull in the winter, obviously, because they're working off limited clothing as well, limited shoes, limited things like that. So they want to be as comfortable as they can too. So it does go into a lull. And, there's a really funny scene that I just remembered in the documentary, and it's O'Byrne talking about how he feels weird because we hadn't been shot at in like 2 or 3 days. And he was like, I don't like it. Doesn't feel right. And when I think back on that, he's right, because I mean, you could guarantee that we were getting shot at least every other day. So we did have a little bit of a lull in the winter, but we still definitely took a lot of rounds.
Dude, that's crazy, man. Because I'll hit the documentary here in a second, but dude, during all of that, and I guess people kind of ask me too, like when you run into a burning house, like are you scared? You know, everything's happening so fast that we don't even really have time to think. But it comes up to me, I'm like, dude, at one point were you just like, or is it just kind of the same thing? Everything's happening so fast, you fall back on your training. I mean, is there a point where you ever thought that you were like, holy crap, like that was close? I mean,
Yes,
I know we'll kind of get into the close part here in a second, but
I imagine it's the same as you guys. It's only in a lull. You're right. Like when you're hitting it, I was just telling my sons this. When things are really bad, it could be cold outside, really cold, and you're sweating and you think it's hot, or vice versa. It could be really hot and you're ice cold because you're not even thinking about it. You're just falling back on your training and you're relying on what you know how to do. I never thought of the danger of anything. I never thought like, oh, this is bad. I was just like, hey, cover, fire back, move over here, do what they're telling me. It never really hit me, and it became fun after a while to just kind of play that game. And then when you did have a lull or a couple days where you're on guard, you're like, man, you know, we called in an airstrike on ourselves, and I remember sitting in a position and having this huge chunk of metal. I remember our FO was calling, I think he was calling danger close, Tanner, and this just smoking piece of metal just came skipping, and it just ever so gently hit me in the calf and fell. And I was like, that is danger close. And I remember thinking how cool it was that I picked it up and kept that piece of metal. And then later on, I was like, yo, that
was a little close. Okay, so explain to people that aren't military like myself, like when you're calling in an airstrike, danger close, like what does that mean?
I mean, they're calling in 500 to 1,500 pound JDAM bombs on a position because either some kind of intelligence or overhead imagery is telling you that they are moving in on your position. And so you have to essentially, it's one man's job to be able to direct aircraft. And mind you, they have great skills. Their jobs are on top of it because they're not only controlling them in the air laterally, but also in stacks up and down, you know, because they won't be in the same plane. And so he's calling in, and I want to say we were like within 500 meters of us, you know, so half a kilometer. He was calling these huge bombs that'll just rock you, that shake houses, to try and back these people off of us. And I know because I was leaning up against a house post. That's where my position was, against a house post dug into a mountain, and the whole thing like swayed like a tent. And then this smoky metal comes skipping across the ground. And I was like, yeah,
incredible. And like danger close, is that because isn't there a distance where like they can't drop because it will harm you guys?
Yeah, I think so. There's authorization levels. So you have to get different levels of authorization to get closer and closer. Obviously, I know for certain operations that they've called in super danger close, where you're talking like 20, 50 meters. Like I need machine gun strafes like right across in front of us. And a lot of times nowadays that's done with lasers and stuff. You'll be like, this is my position. I need, you know, and you'll line it. But, you know, at times you didn't have that. And you were looking at a paper map being like, all right, in this position, and you remind you those are 1 kilometer squares. So you're like, right in front of us. It looks worse than it is, you know?
Yeah. That incredible, man. And I mean, kind of like you said, is what's going through your mind is everything's just happening so fast. Like you said, you get hit in the leg with this, you know, piece of metal, and you're just kind of like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like I'm going to take that home as a souvenir. But then when it locks in, when you know, it's in your mind and you're like, okay, that was a little close.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Dude, and so like a lot of people probably don't know, but there was a film crew with you guys.
Yep.
And the documentary was filmed with you guys there. Can you just kind of tell everybody what the documentary is? And because I'm going to destroy the name, it's Restrepo.
Yeah, what's it's Restrepo. It's named after our medic that died up there, Juan Restrepo. He's a Colombian native, and
Gotcha.
the film crew that came out was Sebastian Younger and Tim Hetherington. And they came out. They were contracted by Vanity Fair and ABC Nightline, and it was a contract thing at first. It was they were they were doing an article called "The Valley of Death," the most dangerous valley in Afghanistan or area, and I guess none of us were around the States when it debuted and came out, so we didn't know the reaction of it. They came out a couple weeks later and said it did really well, and they want to follow up. So they did Return to the Valley of Death, and then we're like, oh man, that's pretty cool. And then a couple months later, they came back out, and they said the outcry of wanting to know more about this and the war, I guess, was at its height. So they got contracted by National Geographic to actually do a whole documentary and spend pretty much the rest of the time with us. Sebastian Younger is a good friend, and he wrote The Perfect Storm and Tribe and a couple other things. And
oh, really?
He's a really good dude. Yeah, he's a writer, and he came out. He also the documentary came out, Restrepo, and it got pretty well acclaimed. Some of my friends went to the Oscars. It was up for some awards, some Emmys or something, and it did really well at the film festivals and stuff like that. He also wrote a book called War, and then he did a follow-up documentary called Korengal, because the valley was called the Korengal Valley, and he had so much footage. But a lot of people liked it because he didn't put any bias on it. He didn't put any spin. There wasn't any, and I know in this day and age, this is hard to believe, but there was no political spin on it at all. It was just us being us. It showed us standing around joking about being shot at, and it showed us smoking cigarettes and just acting foolish, having rock fights, like pebble fights with each other during our downtime. It showed us, it was just us, unfiltered us. And he showed why young men go to combat, why they want to be in combat, the allure of it, the brotherhood, and why we do what we do. You can't ask an 18, 19-year-old, like, what do you think about the political situation, or should we be here, should we be there? I'm like, they don't care. I was there because my best friends were there, and because I had a job to do, and if I didn't do it, then they would suffer, and vice versa. And those men meant and mean the world to me, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. But the documentary, everybody liked it because it just exposed us for who we were, and I've got a hilarious scene in it where the dude, Sebastian, puts the camera in my face after a huge firefight, and he asked me what it was like. And I go through this whole thing. And I say, I was like, it's great. You don't get any higher than this. It's like crack, I say that. And then the scene cuts off there. And I have been asked about that scene thousands of times. I have never done crack. I had never done crack before that. What made me say that, I don't know. I guess I assumed that crack was like a firefighter or vice versa, but it was used later in a news expose about soldiers and drug abuse. They had me on TV, and they were like,
oh, geez.
Yeah, it was like two people, a panelist, and they're like, yeah, soldiers are turning to this to deal with PTSD. And they're like, yeah, take a look at this clip. And it's me saying that. And then they paused on my face. And then the one commentator was like, do you see that? Crack. And I was like, oh man, you took that way out of context.
You're like, my whole career.
Yeah.
And this is what you guys take.
Yeah.
Dude, I think that's crazy. And I didn't realize that, because I did watch the documentary probably years before you and I ever met. And when I saw that, I was like, wait, that's crazy. I actually have seen that documentary, and and it was actually like just kind of crazy. I was telling my wife about it, that I'm like, dude, Kyle was on this documentary, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about,
I was blown away when you said that, because we had been talking for like a year, and you're like, you never told me you were in this. And I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know it was yeah.
Well, yeah, because you have like the picture of like you said, the valley and the buildings that you guys built, and it says, if you know, and I'm like, well, I don't know, so I don't know, and then when you start learning, you're like, oh crap, man, like, dude. All right, Kyle, sorry, we had a little bit of connection issues there going. All right, dude, so we talked, you're up on the mountain, you've got this film crew, going around and kind of recording your guys' story, which now is kind of nice because, dude, you were young. A lot of people don't get, documentation of their years, in war, in, those things. And it's kind of nice where you can kind of relive it a little bit. I know, the good and the bad, but sometimes it's nice to, kind of just, tell your kids and show what you did,
Yeah, yeah, and I was just telling my sons earlier. I said if you're in a situation, and I was explaining to my wife as well, if there's 5 guys in a gunfight, there's 5 different stories to it. We have documented proof of a lot of our there are, and
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
wrong with that. I think a lot of people get caught up in calling veterans out about that stuff, but like I've been in the situation where I've described a firefight to a buddy that we were simultaneously in, and he'll stop me and be like, "That's not how it happened," and I'm like, "Really?" And he'll be like, "You're thinking of so and so who was over behind that tree." And I'm like, "Why am I remembering theirs?" And then if you read the science of it, it's because I could see him and not myself in the third person. So you remember it from a separate point of view.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's wild how that works, because I have a lot of friends that I've been in fights with. I'm on a chat with the Restrepo guys, and they are weekly telling me things that I'm getting wrong. And everybody's like, "That's not how it went." I just recently discovered that we dropped an entire pallet of pudding, of vanilla pudding on somebody's house. I was like, "What? How do I have no memory of this?" And they were like, "Yeah, they were bringing us like pudding cups for a treat, and it didn't work, and it just like fell into this village." And I was like, "Oh man."
You're like, damn, man, I really wish I had a pudding cup up
Yeah,
there. Would have
but
been
I had
great.
that's something you would remember, and I'm like, I can't believe I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that's great. So, like you said, is you dare how many was that just your one deployment up there?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
when you would
I
come
don't.
back and then you would go back, or
No, you did. Each
okay,
unit did one. The people that were there before us was 10th Mountain. They had gone and patrolled that area, but they had never
gotcha.
actually set anything in. We set it in and maintained that position, because the idea was the valley was to make it as far down the valley as you could. It was a hub for transporting arms and munitions from Pakistan through the lumber trade. So when I tell you we didn't make it very far, you wanted to gain terrain advantage throughout the thing, throughout the valley. And, the amount of firefights I have hiding behind a truckload of timber that had been blown up or tipped over, using that as cover because it was just all over the valley, these huge timbers, like railroad ties everywhere.
Gotcha.
And that's how they did it. We were supposed to maintain and gain ground, and it was minimal. I mean, it was minimal. The further you went down the valley, the more you got shot at, the more dangerous it was, the more out of range of the mortars and the support you were. And it was hard, and that film crew, Tim and Sebastian, the recent we didn't have a good taste in our mouths for reporters. No soldiers really do, but
I totally
they had
get it.
they had some reporters out there earlier, and I guess they wrote an expose on them from the New York Times Magazine that I wasn't very flattering. I don't know much about that. I didn't pay attention to them. There was 2 females. I never read the article, but I know a lot of people were mad about it. So when Tim and Sebastian came in, they were not trusted at first, but they
Yeah, yeah.
gained trust very quick. They did everything with us. They went everywhere with us. They ate MREs with us. Tim broke his ankle on a mission. The photographer broke his ankle and walked out of the mission on a broken ankle. Everything. They were with us at night, and they didn't have night vision. They did everything with us. Every now and again you had to swat a camera out of your face, but they really gained our trust. And they become lifelong friends. I still make it a point to reach out to Sebastian. And Tim ended up passing on another assignment in Africa or the Middle East, and rest in
Ugh.
peace, Tim. He was a great dude. He offered me to stay at his flat in London one time. He's a British guy, and they remain lifelong friends. But they won our trust, and they didn't do anything bad in the documentary. They flew us out to New York to see the premiere in a theater. It's like super cool.
Well, dude, like giving back, that's really cool, man, because you
Yeah.
guys do. I mean, you guys went through a lot and sacrificed a lot, just not you, but your families also back at home. And dude, I think that's amazing that they did that.
Yeah, yeah, we owe a lot to them, and they'll be lifelong friends. I can't thank them enough,
Yeah.
and I love the men I served with out there. Um, not all of them stayed in, not all of them went special operations, but they're my brothers. I mean, to the closest men in my life, even
Yeah.
ones I haven't talked to in years, I can still reach out to, and I'm forever grateful to them in that
Dude,
experience.
it's wild the connection that you get when you go through the shit with somebody, you
Yeah.
know? Like, yeah, I wasn't in firefights, but being in fires and stuff, like, you gain a big connection, and like I said, there's a lot of trust that you're like, "All right, like, we're good." Like,
Yeah, there has to be.
yeah,
And,
that's
I often wonder this, I was just talking to my old squad leader, Josh McDonough, and he means the world to me. And I sit back sometimes and wonder if any of us know the impact we have on others' lives. If some of those dudes knew how much they influenced me and my thought process, growing up. Like I said, I was a baby, just a child,
oh, yeah, dude.
and what they did to mold me, I'm forever grateful. And I often think about that in hindsight. Like, do they know how much they mean to me or meant to me at the time and who I've become? And I wonder if I've been able to be fortunate enough to have that experience and pass it along too, because that's the real gift, is passing that stuff
Wow.
along.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Um, so while you're up there, I mean, you hear over the radio. No, you didn't hear over the radio, but a radio went over saying that you were KIA.
Yeah, yeah. So on March 23rd, 2008, I was shot in the nugget, right in the melon, and it was we had set in a kind of an ambush position, I believe, on a mountain, crossed a bridge past a cemetery, and for whatever reason, we decided that the ambush never happened, the unit never came, so we decided to exfil around sunup the next day, and we were coming off the mountain, crossing a pretty open area bridge, and then rounding a corner by the Aliabad Cemetery. And mind you, an Afghan cemetery, they're not buried 6 feet deep, and there's just these like slates of shale with like chiseling on them, like Flintstone, and that's the headstones. And there was a little brick wall, and we start getting attacked hard from two directions, I believe. And so I just get down behind this wall, and we're all in a line, kind of behind a wall. It's real, you know, real old school style fighting, and we're just kind of directing fire back and forth, trying to keep the lull so we can move and bound back. And midway through, we're shooting, and uh, a machine gun blast hits this brick wall, and I just catch shards of metal to my face, and I start bleeding, and I kind of lean over a little bit, and I bleed a little bit down, and I lean back up, and I remember wiping blood from my eyes, and kind of take an aim again. And the last thing I did, as soon as I brought the gun up, I looked at a window, and the window already had a rifle. And the last I saw a flash, and then it was lights out. I saw green spots. That's what I tell everybody. It was green spots, a flash of green spots, and then I was out cold. And I don't know how long I was out. The jury's still out on that. Somebody very close to me, Misha, tells me it was a couple of minutes. I don't know. But the first thing that comes back is your hearing. I could hear everything. I couldn't see anything. It's black. I don't know if my eyes were open. I don't think they were. Couldn't move. You're like paralyzed for a minute. So it came back, and I could feel myself being moved, and my head being moved, and I could hear, but I couldn't lift my arms, and I could hear them calling me KIA over the radio, calling my battle roster number, and that I was dead. And I remember inside just screaming like, "No, not dead, not dead," but not being able to say it. And then I don't know how long afterwards. I guess I just sat up, is what they say, and I kind of looked around, and everybody just kind of gave me a look. And I was like looking around, and I felt my helmet, and it just had this huge frayed hole in it, like the old bazooka rifle hole. And I was like, "Oh no, what happened?" And upon inspection, it actually kind of went through my helmet, because there's a bubbling all the way around on the inside, and then there's a nick on the backside. So, however it did travel or whatever, um, and then my hair was like crispy. I had short hair, but I had like a crispy spot. So I can assume some kind of blast or something happened, but nothing other than that. And raging headache, blood all over my face, and I kind of get stood up, and then they're telling me kind of what to do, and I still not really making out words, and somebody said that I looked ridiculous, because they were like, we were still getting shot at, so there was rounds like hitting these headstones were falling, and leaves and branches were falling off, and I was just kind of standing out in the open, wondering where I was or what was going on. And I don't remember who told me. They were like, you need to go and just run down that road to the Humvee. The Humvee had made it as far as it could to support us. It couldn't come any further, I guess. So I turned around and ran. I ran like it was a Forrest Gump moment. I was just hoofing it down this dirt road, trying to get to a truck to get to cover. And
Crap.
I don't know if my squad leader, if Mac was ahead of me or behind me. He's probably ahead of me. But I ended up getting there, and somebody took a photo of us, and he looked at me in the eye and he said, "Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life." And I'd never forgotten that. And I still hadn't processed me what had happened. I was like, did I? Yes, that was a mistake. Like, that's not what happened. That was a rock that hit me or something,
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't until they took me back to the aid station at the base of the valley. They drove me back, and they were kind of they set me outside, and they were like, "Hey, sit here for a minute. We're gonna go in there and get whatever the table ready or something." And I was like, "All right." And at the time I smoked, so I had put a cigarette in my mouth, and I remember just lighting it and then not being able to do anything with it. I was trying to like give it a suck, and then I took it out of my mouth, and it had soaked itself with blood that was still coming out of my face. And I was like, "Oh no, oh no!" And that was the day I was shot in the head. And it's funny because I was given a test, like a brain test after that, where I have to hit the space bar on a computer for every letter but X. But there was never a baseline test, so I never knew how I did. And they were like, "Well, do you want to sleep on a real bed tonight?" Because I don't think we had real beds yet up at Restrepo. I was like, "Okay." And I slept on a bed terribly. Kept waking up. My neck hurt. I had a raging headache. I think they probably gave me some ibuprofen and said, "Drink water." Solid advice.
Yeah.
And and the next day they said, "You want to go back up?" And I said, "Yeah, without a doubt, unequivocally, yes." So they gave me an escort. I think I walked up with one more person, and this was a walk too. If I didn't say it before, this walk sucked. We had points that were so steep that we had rope lined off from little rocks and trees that you had to like get up and to get up there. And when I was walking up, when I crested the hill, all my friends from the platoon were kind of seated on the walls and the sandbags, and they were like cheering for me to come back up. And that's my fondest memory. One of the fondest memories of my military career is seeing the support from my comrades like that. And I always tell people, when I pass on, that'll be what I go to. I'll walk back up there. That'll be like my Titanic moment of walking up the stairs. Wow. It'll be them sitting there cheering for me to go back home. It's always been one of my best memories is seeing them smiling as I come back up. Probably smiling because I'm alive.
Well, yeah, that's incredible, man. Because I mean, it probably hit them pretty hard when they saw you go down. I mean, dude, you can't help but create a relationship with everybody, and then when you go down, I mean, dude, that was a come to Jesus, and then to see you, it was probably like, he made it, because there's that picture of you, like you said, you're holding your helmet on Instagram, and you're looking at this thing, and you're like, what is he? And it's like, oh shit, man, he was, he literally was shot in the head.
Yeah. People find that,
and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, when it's funny, they did a lot of TBI stuff for me toward the end of my career, and I ended up getting sent to a traumatic brain injury like specialty place, and they had like a welcoming party. They were like, "Are you one of them?" And I guess there's only like 5 of us that have taken one to the dome like that and survived. So I was like, "I'm him," and like they were super pumped to like scan my brain and have like the big like Ghostbusters thing on. And,
yeah.
Like, oh man, this is great. And I was like, "Is it though?"
Dude, that's I mean, it's an incredible story because you said how many people?
I've heard like between 5 and 7 have verified headshot survivors. So that's what the TBI centers have told me. So
yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. And again, that's why it's like you guys deserve a lot because the things that you go through, the things that you've seen, the things you've experienced, like it's why you always just, tell veterans, hey, thank you, for your sacrifice and your family's sacrifice and everything. Cause man, yeah. But now you have a hell of a story.
Yeah. Which I never thought would amount to anything. I was just like, well, I was pretty pumped. They let me keep the helmet.
Yeah. If that's one thing, it's like, hey, at least I got a helmet out of this, and I think, like you said, did it help your IQ? You think that it made you smarter getting hit in the head that hard?
Yeah, I mean, immediately I started playing piano at a grandmaster level and going and crushing people with chess in the park.
Yeah, see, man. So there's a positive. Yeah, dude. That's just an incredible story, man. I mean, again, it just goes to show you, like, well, your resilience. And even after that, then you were like even more pumped. You like, now I'm just gonna go to a whole different level because
Yeah. Well,
and
and I got this weird feeling, and it didn't hit me until later on, but it's like when something like that happens to you, and I don't know if this is like this with everybody, I was like, okay. Because a lot of people were like, man, you're lucky. Yeah, like use your second chance, And it's kind of like once you walk through that door, there's got to be something bigger. I'm supposed to do something. I'm supposed to be here for a reason. Like it's
wow.
very easy to move that bullet a couple inches either way and have it not be this way. So there's a reason I'm here, and I've got to figure it out. I've got to. It's a disservice
Yeah.
for me not to absolutely try to be the best person I can be with a second chance. What I'm
I
doing.
mean, dude, now that you say that's pretty incredible to look at it that way, where you're like, yeah, like why?
Yeah. Why me? Why then? What am I supposed to do? Is there some grander scheme in mind? Does whatever we believe in God, what the universe, what is in store that I'm still here? And I spent the rest of my military career searching for that answer, and just recently, it started to come to light a little bit more. But I went to special operations searching for more. I went everywhere, just being like, what else is there?
Yeah, man. I think too with what you're doing now, I think yes, that's the operator mindset. Um, what is it that you started something for the fathers, the frontline fathers too,
Yeah,
dude? I do think that that's your calling now, and we'll get into that too, because you finish up your time on the mountaintop, and then you go to special forces this time again.
yeah, yeah. Well, I met my wife after coming back from a show. My now wife, and I think she found those pamphlets in a closet or something at my apartment in Italy, and asked me what they were about. And I said, well, it's something that I've always wanted to do, but I don't know now. We'll see. And she kind of called me out. She's like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to try again? And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so at the drop of a hat, I was like, okay. I went and applied. Got accepted to go to selection. I didn't train hardly at all. We had come back from the mountain uh 3 months when I applied. I ended up going to selection about another 3-4 months later, and I trained not nearly as hard. I was not nearly in as good a shape that I was the first time, physical shape, but I had 15 months at OP Restrepo in the Korengal Valley under my belt. I had the best mentorship that you could possibly have in teaching me what it means to be a soldier from the ground level. So I was really confident going in. I was like, there's no way I fail this now. And it's funny because every situation the first time in selection where I had to think about what to do, how to react, what to say, when I was like, how are they viewing me as a candidate, or how are the other team members at selection? How are they going to peer me? How are they going to write their reviews? Because you write reviews on each other. The second time, it never even crossed my mind. I was like, this is the right answer. This is how you do this. This is what we need to be doing. We're not doing the right thing right now. And it just came automatically. It really did. And I like I said, I give all the credit in the world to, Mark Patterson, Josh McDonough, Brennan O'Byrne, and those guys, because they really cultivated that into me, where it was so ingrained that I just knew what the right answer was, that I didn't have to think twice about it. None of the hard stuff was as hard as I remember it being. I remember being terribly hard the first time and me being like, yeah, I'm a stud. And the second time I was like, it's just a little walk with some weight on my back. Nothing more than I did at the Valley every other day for 15 months.
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Kyle, first thing, sorry, man, for the technical difficulties. I know it's just getting hard loaded up, and everybody, I apologize for it also. Because Kyle, dude, everything's great. It's it's going good. And we were just talking about you getting going into selection for Special Forces, Green Beret, right?
Yep.
So, dude, like, so then you finish up 17 years of your career as a Green Beret. And I mean, were you deploying after you get selection and you get your beret?
Yeah, I mean, I went through selection of 24 days, and then you pick your group and your language and your job, and then or they pick it for you, and then you have almost 2 years of schooling to get the beret and go to group, and then finally when I did report to group, yeah, it's hot and heavy right away. I had a little bit of a break because we Seventh Group moved from Fort Bragg to Florida, so we had like a little hiatus. But yeah, I deployed. We trained nonstop, so I deployed to Central or South America like 24 times, and then I did numerous other Afghan and Middle East deployments to they weren't never as long. Special operations doesn't do like 15-monthers, or they didn't when I was there. So they were always slightly shorter, but yeah, doing anywhere from counter narcotic stuff to training missions for foreign forces in Central and South America. I've been to Colombia 5 times.
Yeah, no, if you
Done
could
all
talk
kinds of.
about it. I mean, what are you doing in Colombia? Like,
Oh man, we have so much influence in South America. This is a big trading hub, and it's a big hub. So, whether I was I've done presidential and vice presidential security details. We augment the Secret Service whenever they go visit for G2 summits, things like that.
oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, World Cup and Olympic security in Brazil. We do all kinds of stuff like that. And then also we do a lot of training stuff where, yeah, either you're doing routine training with partner forces, or you're helping them plan and execute a mission. And those depend on the authorities and permissions you get with every country at the time. A lot has to do with administrative talks and State Department stuff. But you know, we would advise on hostage situations and kidnappings in Colombia with locals and stuff like that. So you go down there and you do a lot of different things, especially if they're working a piece and they have a problem set that they can't figure out. They'll bring us in and be like, "Hey, you need to look at this problem set and give us your take on it." We'll help them do a lot of the planning and the backside stuff with it. But lot of fun. I've done a lot of cool things. I'm a combat diver, military free fall, so like skydiving and different things. A level 1 sniper, but um, I've been able to do a lot of cool training and a lot of cool deployments. None of them quite hold up to OP Restrepo.
Yeah, I mean,
Again,
that's
I was
kind of
always
your
searching for like a little bit more, and I would never discredit the time I had. It was fantastic. I've had a dream career, and it's been a lot of fun. I've made really good friends and stuff like that. But yeah, I did 17 years in 7th Special Force Group. Never had instructor time. I was able to like finagle my way out of that. So did a couple of, like year-long administrative tours at the group headquarters just to kind of buy my time. But was a weapons and tactics sergeant. Then I was an intelligence sergeant. And then I was a team sergeant for a little while, and then I went to the 180 Alpha and became a warrant officer. And that's how I retired as an assistant detachment commander.
gotcha,
So
man. And how many days have you said that you're retired out now?
about 77 days.
I mean, nobody's counting.
Yeah.
But dude, like I said in the beginning, I know you don't, you know, hold yourself up, but all of that, like I said, 2 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, like you did some shit, man. And I'm pumped to say that. I know you don't want to take credit for it, but it's like, dude, like, that's pretty badass, man.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. It's just always me searching for a goal and a purpose. I've always been. It's funny because after being shot in the head, like I said, you walk through a door where you really. A lot of people mistake it, and one of my team sergeants, Dave Nolan, and he's always been a really good mentor to me. We had some good firefights together. Once I was already in the special forces, and there was a couple times where I took some risks that he was like, why are you doing this? And you don't think about it at the time. I would revert right back to what had to be done at OP Restrepo and kind of threw my own safety out the window, whether it was standing on the back of a truck trying to fix a gun while we were being shot at. I was just like silhouetted up on the top trying to do things. or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know, it didn't really cross my mind. I would always go back to what I
Yeah.
would have done as a private, and I just did what had to be done. And I'm no more special or no more better than any other dude I've ever served with.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
always
awesome.
me trying to figure out what my place is.
Yeah. And I think you've been truly humble about that. I mean, every single time that we've talked, it's not like you hold yourself up or you put yourself on, it's been very humbling. And I love that, man.
Well, for guys like us, I feel like, and a lot of men can, kind of feel for this is like, you never feel like you're doing enough. You never feel like you always are like, man, I could have
Yeah.
done better, could have done more, and it's always like, I mean, it's kind of like a dysmorphia type thing where you're like, I could always be doing better. And you the most critical person of yourself is and that's how I see it. I'm always not happy with my performance in X, Y, or Z. And you replay these things. You're like, I could have done better. I could have been a better teammate, or I could have been a
Yeah.
better leader. Um, but I think that's what strives us to excellence, right? You're always
Yeah.
trying to be better.
I think that's just our mindset, is you're always striving to be better. Hey, how, like you're aware, self-aware of yourself, of where it's like, hey, how can I be better? How can I, how could I have done this better? Oh, you did a great job. And you're like, did I,
Yeah.
it's
And I still, even at the end of my career, I still had myself wondering what, some of my leaders from the very first years of my career would have said over a decision I made. I was like, what would O'Byrne have thought about this? Or what would Mac have said? What would his opinion be on this situation? I still
yeah,
did that, years later. And a lot of times it brought me some good insight as to thinking about what my original mentors would have thought
yeah,
or done
yeah,
in the situation. And that's always comforted me.
yeah. Well, dude, I think, like I said, you're a humbled guy, and like I said, you're not arrogant in anything. And I think that's what, you're a grounded person. And I think that's what, what's awesome. And dude, you've been really cool. And like I said,
Yeah,
you
man.
could be a guy that
Appreciate
holds yourself. Oh, dude, like, look at my helmet,
it.
see this hair thing here? That's where I got shot, but you've always been humble. And like I said, you didn't even brag about it. I didn't even know any of this. I had to learn. And I'm like, now, wait a second, dude. Like, you didn't tell me any of this.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
so,
I don't. Despite what people think, I don't talk about it all that much. It's funny, and I don't know if some of the older Restrepo guys they might know this, but they started showing it at the the documentary at the Basic Training and Processing Center for infantry guys. So I was walking through the Atlanta airport years ago. Once I was already in Special Forces, and I had a pretty big beard. I was coming back from something, really long hair, and I got recognized in the airport by like 90 brand new recruits, and I was like, whoa. Whoa. And I remember walking up to one of the senior people and being like, why is this happening? And they're like, oh man, well, they show your documentary on a loop when they're getting their gear for the first time in the Army, which I remember they do that, but I watched Band of Brothers and Gladiator on a loop. And I was like,
oh,
oh,
yeah.
that makes sense. So
Yeah.
people used to be like, oh, Restrepo. And there was a time when so many people kind of were saying it that you were kind of military famous for a minute. And there was a time my friends will tell you, I was be like, no, I'm not him. I look like him though, because you were like,
Yeah.
I don't want to tell this story again. We're at a bar in Tucson. Like this is
Yeah. I'm just a person.
yeah. So I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
I never really bring it up. And that's another thing is that like a lot of people are like, soft guys have this thing where it's like, oh, well, he was soft and no, some of the best soldiers I know weren't soft. They were E4s and E5s in the infantry. And,
Yeah.
so I will never, ever discredit somebody. You served. And,
Of
if you
course,
were a
of
good
course.
dude and a solid cat, like it doesn't matter to me what your shoulder said or what the accolades look like,
Yeah. And that's what I try to tell people is like, dude, don't be a douchebag.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. Don't be
Yeah.
that guy.
That guy, it's like, well, you weren't this. So it's like, come on, man.
Yeah. We all do the same job.
Yeah.
You've just been lucky enough in your career that you got put in a position that you had to make that decision,
Yeah.
or don't be that guy. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. All right. So you get out of the military and now you are, like I said, you're trying to adjust to real life. And dude, I think one of the cool things is like you said, you've started the operator's mindset. I mean, I've said it several times on here. Like, I love your mindset on, work, your kids. Like, dude, I'm the exact same way, with my kids is like teaching them or, pushing yourself, because a lot of people, funny thing is we did that Cape Coral run last weekend and, some of the people are like, dude, you are the exact same way that you're on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not putting on a front. Like this is how I act. These are the things that I say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like this morning, like I was like, motivational Mondays, like I think it's a bunch of crap. Like it should be every single day.
Yeah. Discipline.
So dude, you start operator mindset, like kind of like walk me through it. Like what have been some successes that you've had with it and where do you want to go with it? Because dude, I love your mindset.
Yeah, I started operator mindset because some years ago I started a youth wrestling club in our hometown. My sons wanted to wrestle. They knew I wrestled and I started it. And it was, the coaches were all active duty military. So we ran like a rotation schedule of coaching. And I started coaching and I just was being the guy that I am. Like, I'm just like you, like people, I'm the same dude I am on Instagram. I'm not smart enough to put on a front. So like I answer all my own messages. That's why it takes me a while. Cause I'm like, it's so late. But so I start this wrestling club and then my sons started doing really well, better than I thought they would. My oldest son did not do well his first year. And I gave him a talk in the car. He did terrible his first year. And then he said, come back to it a second year. I said, you want to try this again? And he's like, yeah. And then, we started the season and he was getting just crushed again. And I gave him a talk in the car. Like, I guess you could call it an inspirational talk. I tell my wife, if I could bottle whatever I said to him in the car that day, I could sell it because I think the rest of that season, he went like 50-4 and he got like third at the state championships. I don't know what I said to him, but I started cultivating whatever it was into greater ideas. Like we talk about effort, persistence, the grit, the perseverance to get back up. I started doing these things. I started going through clearing his mind. And then as I coached, that you can, if you're a free agent youth wrestler that doesn't have a coach at a tournament, you can kind of freelance one. And I would wear a headband. So I was kind of started getting known as the headband coach on these like forums. And they were like, I want the headband coach. He's intense. And then I had dads starting to reach out to me being like, hey, can you do pre-match mental preparation with my son? Can you talk to my son? It like ballooned. Nice. And I was like, okay. And then operator mindset came about because a dude that knew what I did, I was taking these kids, and these were young kids. I was taking them through closing their eyes and kind of visualizing how they wanted their match to go and pre-match mental preparation. I had them, then I would have them close their eyes and they were on their knees. And I said, get up, now act it out exactly the way you want it to go. And then I would say like, now, hey, he does this. And visualize what you don't want to happen. Visualize what you do want to happen. You're going to wrestle. And I was doing that. And another little boy looked and said, can we do what they're doing? And I overheard his dad said, no, he's an operator. That's operator stuff. Like, we don't do that. And I remember thinking like, that's not cool, man. Like, he's more than welcome to jump in. I didn't say anything, but he said that. And I was like, why would he say that? And my friend started being like, well, because you have a mindset about you because of what you do for a job. And I remember thinking like, it has nothing to do with what I do for a job. Many people can have this mindset, and they do. The people, the most successful people in the world, not all of them did anything like this. So that's how I got operator mindset. I started really ballooning that out to being like, the mental training in a child is very, very worth it. At that age, simple aggression and being more of an alpha on the mat will win you 80% of your matches, than being more timid. And so I started raising my sons that way, and that kind of overflowed into what my mission became. I was showing my son The Patriot years ago, and he asked me about the part where they're having the discussion about officers and not being at the offset of engagements and not being fired upon, and why they stand at the back and give commands. And I said, well, that's how the British Army was back then. And he's like, they don't lead from the front. And I said, no, they didn't. You didn't even target officers because then your formations had no commands to go off of. And he thought that was really hypocritical. He was like, what? They're cowards. They don't want to fight. They don't even shoot their guns. And I was like, huh. And my younger son was like, you don't do that though. You're always with us. I'm like, yeah, I am. And they kind of bred that frontline fathers thing. And like I was saying, off camera, I once you're faced with death like that, I had always thought I had a greater mission in life. Like, okay, I'm supposed to do something. Yeah, as the saying goes, invent a longer lasting light bulb or cure cancer or something. I was always searching for, why is it still me? Why am I still here? Why is this? I must have a purpose. There must be some reason. So I've been searching for this nonstop. And then it dawned on me just a couple months ago, with the help of some friends, that maybe it's through this. Maybe it's through what you do with your kids, and how you kind of want to give back to that community. And they're right. So a lot of people think I'm a little hard on my sons because I want to raise them hard. I became obsessed with this idea. If you talk to a lot of people in the SOF or in the Army, not a lot of them had real silver spoon upbringings. Not a lot of them were like, yeah, I had a yacht and was doing good, especially if you're in special operations and you don't mind getting the crap kicked out of you for 2 years to make it to something that may or may not be good. It's mostly dudes that had a hard upbringing.
Yeah.
So then I started looking at resilience and grit and the attributes, and thinking like, okay, how can I cultivate this in my son without inducing the type of trauma that's associated with it, right? Like, no kid needs to be left freezing on the road with cigarette burns to create that hardness. There's a way to do it. And I became obsessed with that. Like, how can I make them hard? And like to your point, becoming comfortable being uncomfortable. Me and my sons cold plunge every morning. They hate it. They hate it. And they're just, it's terrible. We run together. We do everything together. And I really took a hardline approach to it with my sons when I did a deployment in 2022. I was gone for like 250 or 260 days. And when I got back, my middle son didn't really recognize me, and he didn't want to have me read him a book that night. He asked my wife if it was okay if I didn't read a book. He was that uncomfortable with being around me, and it killed me. It drove me nuts. So that was the day I decided to get out of the Army. And I had a couple of years left. I had to kind of like pave my way, but I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Like, I can't do this again. And so now I started Frontline Fathers as an online community because I wanted to know how other dudes are trying to do what I'm doing. And my end goal is like my website says, is to create the hard men in the softest times in human history, really. Like, how do we continue to cultivate this mindset? How do you do that? And there's a way to do it. People say, like, you've got that little graph, hard men, make good times, and that graph. Well, I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the way it goes, but it can be stopped. It can be interrupted. There's a way to do it.
Yeah.
If we don't fall into the traps of latter years. And that's what I do. And now my whole life is doing everything with them. Everything. Like, I have a Polaris upstairs that I use to drive around the property, and something went out on it, and I didn't know what it was. So I'm spending 3 days learning how to fix this thing, but they're next to me learning, and we're working on it together.
Of course,
I do everything with them because I want to make the most of that time. Yeah, I can't buy back the time I missed, but I can make the most of what I have left with them. And I intend on doing that. So the community was for me to get other ideas and just to get like minds together, be like, how do you do this? How do you handle this? And it's been really good. I just sent my sons to a 5-day wrestling camp, which they call it like the Ranger School of Wrestling Camps. They ran 4 miles every morning, and my sons were like, this is terrible. My legs hurt so bad. I'm like, yeah, welcome to the suck. And one of them is 8, and I asked him, though, I said, what pace are you holding at 4 miles? And he's like, I don't know, it's under 7. I was like, okay, that's okay, and they're okay with it. And then when I got there, nobody complimented to pick them up. Nobody complimented on how good they were or this and that. All they said was hardest workers in the room. And I said, that's all I needed to hear. Like, that makes me happier than anything. I don't care if they got beat by everybody in the room. If you tell me they consistently gave you their 100%, solid. Effort over outcome every time.
Dude, sorry about the technical difficulty again.
All good, buddy.
I absolutely love that mindset of hardest worker in the room, because like I said in the very beginning, is like, hey, I don't care if they're stronger or faster, just outwork them. Just keep pushing, because you know what? Some people are going to break because they're just not used to the hard work, man. So yes, raising hard men in soft times. Like, yeah. I'm the same way. Like, if I need to change the oil, my truck, my boy and I do it. My daughter's getting old enough now that she'll start coming out and doing it, because like, how embarrassing is it going to be if my boy doesn't know how to change a tire, doesn't know how to change oil, like it,
Yeah.
or my daughter too. Like, I'm not even going to not say that my daughter, because how embarrassing is it going to be when, her boyfriend or husband doesn't know how to change a tire and she does.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And like a lot of this stuff, like I said, I've spent 22 years being a soldier. A ton of this stuff I don't know. I
Yeah.
will learn it and they will learn it and we'll be together. And these are memories. Memories are worth so much more than possessions, that I'm trying to create these core memories, but also give them lifelong skills. And if I my vendetta, a lot of times people take this as like I'm against these dads, these hypocritical dads that want their kids to be exceptional in every regard, but they don't hold themselves to the same standard. That's why I'll
Of
never make
course.
my kids do anything that I wouldn't do or won't do. Sometimes I hate running with them. I've 2 knee surgeries and like in my 40s, and they're like, "Can we go for the trail run?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can go for the trail run." I took them on the 9/11 Memorial Run. It was 9.11 kilometers, and we take off, and my son is just out of the gate going, and I think he was holding like a 7:07 mile, and I was like, we get to like halfway and there's a Gatorade table, man. And I was like, "Hey, buddy, Gatorade over there. You want to stop and get a cup?" And he's like, "No, I'm good." And I was like, "I want to stop."
Dude, a 7-minute pace.
He was flying, dude. The command team brought him in and gave him coins. I was like, man, he almost broke
Dude,
me off, man. Like, I was doing the best I could. But that's the thing, is that I would never make them do that on their own. Like, I will be with them every step of the way. And it's important for a son and a daughter to see your failures, to see you sucking and knowing that it's not going to kill you, that you will
Yeah.
bounce back, that I'll be fine. I'll be fine. You'll be fine. We'll all be fine.
Dude, I think it was like a year ago, I was supposed to do an Instagram post. I was going to video myself out running with my boy, and it could have been my daughter, one of them, but they started falling apart on the run. And at that point, I was like, I am not going to do a post. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to coach my kids,
Yeah.
and the whole time it's like, hey, remember what you do it for. Remember what you do it for. Hey, just put one foot in front of the other. Look up here, find a telephone pole, make it to that telephone pole, then find a mailbox and make it to that. Like when we go out and run when it's hot, I'm like,
Yeah.
perfect. Hey, today we're challenging the heat. I'm the same way, dude. I absolutely love it. And I think we need more of it, because there's sometimes that I'll see a dad, sorry to say this, but he's an overweight dad trying to push his kids to run. And it's like, how are you going to run when you can't even do it? You're sitting here telling your kids to do it, but you can't even freaking do it. Like, put your money where your mouth is, man.
Yeah. I overheard 2 dads talking some months ago about why their kids didn't do as well as they were supposed to do in their given sport. And the one said, "Well, if I could just keep his weight down, but he likes those midnight cereal binges." And the other dad said, "Well, where does he get the midnight cereal?" And the dad said, "From my midnight cereal stash." And I was like, "Brother,
Like, come
my
on,
brother,
man.
like you've answered your own question, And the other one said the same thing you said. He said, he goes to the weight room, he just doesn't do the road work. And he's like, "I take him to the weight room." I was like, "But do you take him on runs? Because he'll do the road work. Even if you started doing it, I bet you 3 runs in, he's like, 'Hey, I'm gonna go with you.' Bet you."
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
it's that simple. Kids can spot hypocrisy way better than humans. A
Oh,
mile away. They're the kings of, "It's not fair." They can spot that, miles away.
dude. And there's some days that I don't want, dude. My biggest thing, my kryptonite is like working out in the afternoon. I've worked out in the morning for years. And so you want to work out after their school? I'm like, but I've had to start training myself that it's like, all right, like, hey,
Yeah.
what example am I setting? What example am I setting?
Yeah. And my middle son calls me out, man. He's like, "You gonna cold tub with us?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah. It was like 28 degrees, dude, in Wisconsin. I was like, "Yeah, let's cold tub, dude." Bro.
But dude, that's just that mindset, man.
Mhm.
And I love the operator mindset. I know you do your carousels on there, and dude, I'll read them. I'm
Yeah.
like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
like this dude's getting after it. And I mean, honestly, man, I feel like we need to do a podcast down the road together over, fatherhood. And like I said, it's just not over just raising sons, but you have a daughter too,
Yeah.
that's coming up that, she's gonna need guidance. And hey, I don't take it easy on my daughter. Like, I'm just as hard on her as
Yeah.
I am, my son,
100%. Because you want her to choose a man, a life partner that lives up to your standards. Well, how can she do it when the example is not the standard that you want? You know what I'm saying? If I say the sentence like, "You're okay with your daughter marrying a very mediocre man, right?" You're like, every father's like, no, no, you want the best for them, so be the best for them. They're only
Yeah,
going to choose what you imitate. A daughter especially. I want my daughter to choose the best possible man she can by everything she takes as an example from me. I want her to bounce everything off him. Does he work out? Does he eat healthy? Does he take care of himself? Is he honest? Does he have integrity? You know what I'm saying? Does he treat his mother right? 100%. I mean, I'm working on a mentorship platform right now, and it's got all kinds of things like that in it. It doesn't have to be everything hard. It's as much as, how do you shake a man's hand? How do you look them in the eye? What's your presence when you enter a room? Like everything from
yeah,
that. Women see that. I would argue women probably notice it. Your daughters probably notice it more than men. Like, little boys are dumb. They're squirrel. But girls are always watching you, man. And
yeah.
I make a point to, like, that's how I greet my wife. My daughter always sees it. I can see her like smiling behind the counter. And I have to make a point to it, even if I'm in a terrible mood, because I know she's watching me, and it has
Yeah.
to be that way.
And I mean, dude,
That's
and
where we go
that's
wrong. That's where that cycle is broken. When we stop doing those things, we're no longer creating the type of people. This saying, this is one of my biggest shticks. The saying, "I want my kids to have a better life than me," is wrong, in my opinion. You want your sons to be better men than you. You want your daughter to choose a better man than you. That's it. Like,
nice.
because if they do that, they will have a better life. One equals the other. It will be inherent. If your son is a better man than you, and that's your end goal, to make him a better man than you, then he will have a better life than you.
And
If your daughter seeks out a better man than you, then she will have a better life.
yeah, I mean,
Simple as
dude,
that.
they're an example of you, right? I
Yeah.
feel like people will judge me off my parenting if they see my kids and they're, how they act, how they get
Yeah.
treated. Like, every time at school, it was, dude, your kids are so great. I would love to have a whole classroom full of them. And it's like,
Yeah.
good, that's what we've strived,
Yeah.
like that's how I was parented. Like, I'm sorry, but I got spanked as a kid. Like, that was the way it went. Like, why
Yeah.
is it that, you know, sorry, but I'm just like, I feel like some men are just like cowardly, where it's like, do you think I want to discipline my kids? I don't want to discipline my kids, but I know down the road it's going to help them,
Yeah, 100%.
you know?
One of the things that feeds me the most is I used to take my kids to a really little kids wrestling practice, and they would be assistant coaches. And when I would get compliments from parents on how well they handled 4-year-old girls and these tiny, tiny kids tumbling over themselves with patience and understanding, that made my whole day. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
it. That's what I'm talking about. Because
Yeah.
that's the end goal, right? To make them better than you are. And
It is, man.
that really that filled my cup good. I love those compliments.
Well, I love it, dude. And I know that you said it, that there was a reason why all of this happened. And I really think that you're onto it. I think that, like you said, is you're just freshly retired, and
Yeah.
this is your goal, dude. And I really honestly believe that, because I believe that there's a lot of guys that are going to look up to you, because it's weird for me, because I have that mindset where that's just the regular way that I think. That it's hard for me when I see somebody, when you're just like, well, why do you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work out? Is like, because I have to. They're like, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, I do. They were like, well, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. You just get up and go.
Yeah.
Some people struggle with that. And that's why, you have mentors, just like I have business mentors. That's why I have podcast mentors. It's all
Yeah.
of those things. And just like fatherhood, like you know, it's just some people need mentors, and it's
Yeah.
okay. And dude, like I said, I love reading your stuff, and it makes me start thinking, where I'm like, huh, you know? And then, like you kind of said, it's like kind of like the special forces thing. You get a group of people together, and then you get, your mission put together, and your mission is fatherhood. Then, hey, dude, how did you deal with this? Oh, all right. How did you do, and
Yeah.
I
Like, I
think
haven't
it's,
even hit all the apex of childhood yet. I'm at 10, 8, and 4. I'm still learning the ropes. I'm like, what am I in for 11 and 12? What am I in for middle school? What's high school going to look like? And I'm trying to deal with that. I love the feedback that I get in the group that I started, because I'm like, Oh yeah. Or I'll get reminders like, this is how I did it. I'm like, that's really good. But one of
Yeah.
my biggest satisfactory things that I like to do is talk to like corporate businessmen that are like, hey, crushing it in the business world, great career, but they don't feel like they're being as forthright and present as a father. I'm like, dude, I love making those connections. Like, look, you strive to build this business or become this thing in this world. Now, like, you need to apply all these same factors to what they see, what they emulate, how you are present with them. I love that. Dude's
Yeah.
CEO of $1 million company or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I'm not crushing it at home like I should be. I'm like, yo, dude, you were getting up at 5 every day to work on your business. You need to
Yeah.
translate that discipline to every other facet of your life. And the most
Mhm.
important ones, the ones that are going to rub off on them. They might not
Yeah.
be $1 million businessmen, but they're going to be husbands, fathers, men in society. Like those are the things you
Yeah.
need to bleed off onto them. I love that. That gives me a lot of joy is making
Yeah.
those connections.
And I think it's right because I can't remember what NFL coach just had his son shoot his wife. But you start
Oh
thinking
yeah.
of you start thinking about it and you're like, dude, these coaches, they're probably gone all the time. And who's raising the kids,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like you said, dude, you could be crushing it in your business, you could be crushing it in life, but you're missing the home life. Like your kids are missing you. So I mean, kind of like what you said is, I'm deployed doing this thing, and the next thing I know, I come home and my boy doesn't want to read me a book.
Yeah. It killed
You,
me. And I'm not going to point to any particular science or studies about it, but like it's common knowledge that the less a father is involved in life, the more problems the youths have. You can see it, whether it's no father, whether it's a father that's there, but he's not really there, not present, to a
yeah,
father that's, you know, the most successful kids come out of a very balanced relationship and a healthy relationship with a dad there enforcing discipline because a dad and a mom have two very different
yeah.
dynamics. And we have to be those standard bearers. We have to hold the line.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that,
I definitely feel like, yeah, the less the father's there, the less the odds. I agree
big
with that
time.
because there are those cases where you're like, oh man, I was, brought up with just my mom, and you're like, wow, like it's crazy because I had a mom and dad, no
Yeah.
divorce or anything, so never had to deal with any of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm homeschooling them this year. We're trying that out because I was like, yeah, I want more time. Like, give me more time. So here I am in the corner early in the morning learning long division again so that I can teach it that day. I'm like, all right, let me see here. Like, how do we do this? And I'm like, everything that I do that they do, I either learn with them or in that case, I learn right before they come. I'm like, all right. And then I look like the expert, like this is how we do long division. But I love it. It gets so fulfilling. I'm
Yeah.
having a blast doing it.
Well, I know my wife said that if I mean, dude, I just feel like the school system's dropping the ball with the kids, and if we could do it all over again, we would probably homeschool our kids.
Yeah. I'm
Or
so excited about this. Yeah. I get to do it my way and like I'm taking care of everything. I love the math section. Dude, the history is blowing me away because they're like really into history. So I'm like, yeah, let's talk. We made swords today. We went to a casting guy and we made our own metal swords, like old school casting with the metal. And like that was our homeschool thing today. And I was like, yeah, I have a Spartan sword. This is sweet that I
Yeah,
made.
that's pretty awesome, man. That's pretty awesome. And especially with your life experiences, I mean, you've dealt with stuff, you've seen stuff, like they really will get that life experience out of it. And, kind of like I tell my kids is like I've seen some stuff, you
Mhm.
know. I'm not taking it away from your teacher, but you haven't had somebody's life in your hands.
Yeah.
Like I've dealt with that. So who are you going to listen to,
Yeah, yeah.
So it,
Experiences trump book knowledge day in and day out. And I'll tell everybody that. Like you can read stuff in a book, but I've had direct knowledge of contradicting certain things. And be like, well, it's like this here in this place. I'm like, no, it's not. And how do
well,
you know? Well, I went to college or have a degree for that. I'm like, well, I was just there 2 months ago, and that's not the case.
yeah. Well, I mean, think about it when you very first started your career in the military. You had all the book knowledge. You even
Yeah,
said, you were like, dude, I studied so hard to pass that test and I passed it, but I missed the experience part.
yeah. I had none of it.
Amazing,
You know.
man. Yeah. Dude, that's That's awesome, man. Like I'm pumped to talk about that, and I know hopefully people got a lot out of this. And guys, if you reach out to Kyle, he's awesome. He'll respond back to you. It's that's how we got here. And dude, I love it, man. We could talk mindset all the time because you were like visualize the match and this and that, and I'm like, oh, I freaking love it, man. Like, let's go. All right, dude. I'm sorry, everybody. We are just having a bunch of technical difficulties today, this connection and everything. But, dude, frontline fathers, operators mindset, guys. Kyle, you're on Instagram and you have web pages and everything. So if anybody wants to get in contact with you, go through there.
Yeah. Real Kyle Steiner on Instagram, Real Kyle Steiner on Facebook. You can also join the Frontline Fathers Facebook group. And then my website is operatedifferent.com because we want to operate different.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like I said, your carousels and everything, you read through them. Like, dude, it's super helpful. And I mean, honestly, man, I'll read them and I'll be like, dude, I love it. I love it, man.
Yeah, I want them to make you want to go for a run and do some awesome stuff. That's it.
Dude, yeah. And two, like I said, being a father, dude, we all go through, different things. Every kid is different. One of the things that one of my best friends, he had kids that were kind of in high school by the time I had my kids. And his wife came to our baby shower and she gave us a card. And basically the card said in it was, every single kid is different. So you read as many baby books as you want, but every kid is going to be different. So being in a fatherhood and having all these different, people to bounce ideas off of, I think is a great idea, and it's great.
It is. My sons are wildly different. And I need different techniques for both of them, and that's a part of fatherhood. That's what you have to do,
My boy's completely different than my daughter, and even them as babies, they were completely different too. So, I think that's great, man. And I think, like I said, is maybe down the road, our next podcast together will be a, fatherhood podcast for the dads out there. And, even the moms that can take some of this and use it also.
Yeah. I would love it, brother.
Because I mean, not just fathers with their mindset, but moms also with the mindsets and, with the kids.
Oh yeah. It's a two-way street, dude.
All right, dude. So we're going to kind of wrap it up now, but I always do some rapid fire questions here at the end to just kind of, get a little fun into it. So,
yeah.
All right, dude. What is your favorite movie?
Braveheart.
Braveheart, dude. Yeah. I love Braveheart. I mean, William Wallace, and
oh, dude, I let my sons watch movies in an order based on when I think they're ready, and it aligns with a lesson that we're talking about. And my oldest son just watched Braveheart, and he was just like mind blown. I was like, and my youngest son is about to do The Last Samurai. He's about to be on that one about honor.
That's one I have not seen that I've heard.
It's
really
great
good.
On honor. Yeah.
Yeah, got you.
It's an honor thing. So yeah, my younger one is about to go into that. I think after that they'll both have a King Arthur in them.
Yeah, dude, but yeah, going back, Braveheart is a terrific movie. That one and The Patriot, I love The Patriot.
Yeah, that's my son's favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, dude, what's your favorite meal? What's your go-to meal?
I mean, I run a hybrid animal-based diet, so I eat beef. I eat ruminant animal, beef and deer and elk nonstop. But if I have to have anything, if my sons have a big win or something, it's usually a pizza. It's usually a pizza. I love a pizza, but because I eat a steak 5 days a week. So I would say I love steak, but the thing that induces the memories, like if they had a big tournament or something's going on, it's always a pizza. I met my wife in Italy, so like I'm kind of partial to it. Her and I, like that's our thing to get.
So
Italian.
Are you New York style? Are you Chicago deep dish? Or are you just like Pizza Hut?
No, strangely enough, I am. It's called the Milwaukee pub style. It's the little square crispy pieces. They're cut into squares. I love that style. If I had to, I'd go New York. If it was between the other two, my sons both like the deep dish. There's too many carbs for me. I like one piece. I'm like, oh god, too much. But it's either Detroit. They call it St. Louis sometimes, or Milwaukee pub style. It's crunchy, low, square cut. Love it.
I was gonna say I know it is the St. Louis pizza.
Yeah.
When you said that, I was like. Yeah. So
It's
But yeah,
described a couple different ways, but it's a Midwestern thing, and I love it.
yeah. And dude, I love deep dish, but I tell everybody they're just two different style pizzas. Like
For sure.
Chicago, I mean, it's like a pie, and then like New York, it's just so easy to eat and everything. And like I
Oh
said,
yeah,
and then
the
you got the
folding. It's the
crispiness.
same in Italy, dude. North Italy and South Italy, they're wildly different pizzas, and you're like, all right,
No
well,
kidding. I've
yeah,
never been to Italy, but
yeah.
okay. Awesome, man. All right. Coffee or energy drink?
It depends on the time of year, but I would say I like coffee. I'm a coffee guy. I drink coffee all day long. But if
Yeah.
it's really hot, I'll be like, ugh. I'll even buy the big jug of the cold brew, the
Cold
big like
brew. Yeah.
Stoke STOK,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
just hammer that like on the lawnmower if it's like hot.
Dude, my buddy and I just had coffee this morning and it's like 90 to 100 degrees here.
Yeah.
And I had to get a hot cup of coffee. I'm like, oh man, it's too hot to drink hot coffee. Like I need some cold brew right now.
Yeah, I'll do an energy drink here and there, especially if I'm doing like an 11-hour drive with the kids to someplace. But I can always hear my wife's voice in the back of my head, like, like cancer this and like bad sugar that. I'm like, all right, black coffee it is.
Okay. Favorite place that you've ever traveled?
Favorite place that I've ever traveled? Probably Dublin, Ireland.
I got you. All right.
I
My
had a
wife
lot of
wants to
fun
go
there.
there.
Yeah, it's really fun. I was there for St. Patty's Day, so
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I bet that
Yeah.
was incredible though.
Oh, it was awesome. That was that people when I was stationed in Italy, people always say like, "Oh, Italy's like it's the best duty station in the army," because I went to St. Patty's Day in Dublin, I went to Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany. I was on the Eiffel Tower for New Year's. Like I just went places and saw everything, but I had never been to a more welcoming / party town as Dublin was. And I was in Rome in 2006 when they won the World Cup when Italy
Oh,
did, and that was
geez.
wild. Yeah. Wild.
Wow. Yeah, I'd definitely want to go to Dublin.
Yeah, Dublin's cool. Super cool.
What was the hardest military school that you completed?
CDQC, combat diver. Combat diver school was terrible. Once I blacked out underwater and was revived under an ambulance, all fear was then gone. Like most people do black out once, but you don't really get that. You're like, oh, you're gonna black out, and old divers will tell you that. And you're like, no, I won't. Like, I don't know. Do I want to black out underwater? And when you see the wizard and it goes black, and then you wake up with an oxygen mask on, and there's an ambulance next to you, you're like,
Man.
oh man. But the funny thing is, the fear goes away after that. Then, like, you can pass with impunity. That school is very, very hard, but you can pass with impunity because you're like, well, I mean, the worst that happens is I black out again.
Wow. I've seen the videos of it, and dude,
It's terrible.
It is intense. I'm like, oh God.
Terrible.
They're like, come back to the light, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, man.
No, it's awful, brother. It's so bad.
What's the one book that you think everybody should read? If you're a reader.
Yeah, no, I definitely am a reader, and with what we've been talking about recently, I would say Rules for a Night by Ethan Hawke. Rules for a Night are a series of memoirs. Apparently, Ethan Hawke, the actor, his family is traced all the way back to medieval England. And
Okay.
he in his family, he had a series of letters that a knight wrote to his son on the eve of a battle on how to be a proper man, on how to treat his mother, on how to treat his sister, on how to gain his honor, how to live with integrity. Dude, it's phenomenal. It's a tiny coffee table book, and I found it at this weird trinket store. I have 2 of them now. It is wildly awesome, and it's the real memoirs of a knight telling his son.
What was the name of it again?
Rules for a Night by Ethan Hawke. Awesome
Gotcha.
book. It's my number 1 recommendation to fathers. So I'm like, this is him thinking that he's going to die the next day, telling his son how to carry out his legacy as a man of honor. It's wildly good, man.
Wow.
I love it.
That actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
I had to
it's
write
super
that
cool.
one down. One thing that you're terrible at.
One thing that I'm terrible at. I mean, my handwriting is really bad. Really bad. It would be between that and anything automotive. Like I'm learning automotive stuff from the ground up.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, change oil, trying to learn it. Like figuring it out. Brake pads. I'm like, all right, this is a whole thing. I have fixed so my lawnmowers, anything like automotive or engines. I'm really, really trying to figure it out, dude.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
driving me up
crazy
the
once you
wall.
start figuring out like the combustion part of it, and then you can start like troubleshooting. You're like, okay, like it needs enough air and fuel to do all of this. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So if it's missing some of this, and like, okay,
Ugh.
it's kind of crazy. I'm okay. I'm not great, but I'm
Yeah.
okay. You know, sometimes I can surprise myself that I'm like, holy crap, like I figured
Yeah.
it out.
I'm getting better. Getting better.
All right, man. The last question. Who do you carry the flag for?
I mean, I carry the flag for my family. You know the answer to that. I carry the flag for my family. They're everything to me. They sacrificed everything they had for me to do the job I did. I was priority number one for so many years, and only when you take a step back do you realize how unfair that is. And now I want them to be priority number one. I'm support mechanism, and I carry it for them. Everything I do, they are where my legacy is, and the reason I didn't die is so I could pass something along.
Awesome, man. And, you know, I kind of knew the answer to that after we've had our conversation. That I'm like, I know exactly who he carries the flag for. You used to carry it for the military, you know, for the country and everything. And now priorities change. And
They do, yeah, and that's what it's for because I did my time and I proudly carried it. I love bearing it on my shoulder, and now my attention has to turn towards them so that I can make them as honorable enough to do similar
awesome,
in
dude.
a similar circumstance.
For the next generation, right?
Yep,
Hell yeah,
I ain't gonna
man.
be around forever to carry it, so they gotta pick it up.
Yeah. Well, dude, Kyle, I knew this was going to be a great episode. I knew, and I just can't thank you enough for being on the episode. And also, again, tell everybody where they can find you at again. So if somebody wants to reach out or, you know,
Yeah, reach out to me at real Kyle Steiner, just real Kyle Steiner on Instagram, real Kyle Steiner on Facebook, and you'll see my Frontline Fathers Facebook group also, and then my website for consulting and coaching is operatedifferent.com.
dude, thank you again for being on, man. Like
My pleasure, brother.
I've said it several times. I love your mindset. The story was just incredible. I knew it was going to be incredible. And man, I can't thank you enough for giving us an opportunity to interview you.
Yeah, man, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me, brother.
Oh yeah. Guys, thank you again for taking the time to listen to this. You have every opportunity not to, but you chose to listen to all of this. And I can't thank you all enough. I keep telling everybody every single time, and I truly mean it, that these are just words without all of you. This is a movement with you. And I can't thank you guys for being a part of this and just continuing the message and the movement of carry the flag. So thank you again. You all take care. And who's going to carry the flag?